Battle brothers and battle sisters, he's gone. He's gone but not forgotten. He has been elevated. He has been freed from his mortal shackles to become eternal art, memories, experiences, inspiration for all of us Grimdark lovers, for all of us admirers of the twisted, broken, surreal, oniric world that he helped us visualize and be a part of. Welcome everyone to the Hobby Guard, and today's video is a homage, mediocre homage mind you, to the great John Blanche. So, my friend, may the Emperor guide you and keep you at his side eternally. Of course, thoughts and prayers to his family. Granted, he had been having health issues for a while now, and you know, it is the way of the world, it is the way of life, but yet we may celebrate that life even if we mourn his passing, and we may celebrate how lucky we were to exist at the same time as such an amazing artist, a visionary, if you will. So, cheers to you, John Blanche, maestro. And with that being said, a couple of disclaimers out of the way before I dive into the topic of the video. Apologies for the mess, I am still in the process, like I just moved, so I'm still like organizing my whole setup, but yeah, that's where I intend to start doing, like painting, maybe live streams or videos eventually, and kit bashing videos, and even, why not, drawing videos. So that's the first thing out of the way. Second thing out of the way, yes, I am wearing a Conan the Barbarian replica helmet. I have not drilled in the horns because I am a BCB, but that's besides the point. But more importantly, I wanted to scroll through some of his artwork, John Blanche's artwork, that is, while I reminisce a bit and just speedball some of the ideas that his art evokes me, and why I think it was so special to so many of us. So, first things first, I think one of the, by the way, the website I am on is the 40K Gallery, so I apologize for all the ads. But the first thing I wanted to talk about is how much his artwork feels lived in. It does not seem, even though it was very much the case, it doesn't seem like he's working on just conceptual art for an IP that just hired him to make art for their games or whatever. It feels much more like the schizophrenic visions of a rambling madman, like a window was opened into the man of a mind who has lived, existed in a parallel dimension where humanity and the entire universe has gone horribly wrong, horribly awry. If you close your eyes, I'm not telling you to close your eyes, but if you were to close your eyes and see with your mind's eye the worst possible fate for humanity, let's say 20,000 years from now, then you might actually visualize something similar to what John Blanche used to paint. But that is not to say that his artwork was devoid of his personality. It is, I have said surreal, but it is also almost impressionistic in many ways, because he is very aggressive with his ideas. You know, anatomy to an extent takes a backseat. Some of his art, and this is somewhat controversial, I think, at least I haven't heard anyone else refer to it as such, but some of his art reminds me of like the Art Nouveau or the French fashion art, where the anatomy of the figures is extremely exaggerated to accentuate the gesture, the movement, the fluidity of the form, and in this case not only the human form but more more of a transhuman form. So we see some of that in some of his paintings, not in all of them, of course. And I am not skipping through these because I like them more or less, but I was just looking for a great example, and this is absolutely one of my favorite. The great Khan, the Khan of Khans, Jaghatai Khan. Look at his boot. He seems almost like he is in a fashion show to an extent, but he also, like, you can feel the savagery coming off of this painting. You can feel to an extent, like, yes, it's full of vitality and the colors are vibrant and there is a lot of personality and there is a fury in this character, but also you can sense something about the saturation of the colors. I don't know, I'm no art critic by any means, I am barely an artist myself, but by the saturation of the colors and everything, you can tell that wherever this image was taken from, in whichever universe we are gazing into when this moment in time was captured, it is a very dark one, a very brutal one, a very savage one, and yet is not without grace. It is not without excellence, without discipline, without attention to detail. And I'm not talking about the detail of the painter, but the detail and the effort that the painter and the artist put into making these pieces more detailed again has sort of a meta meaning, in the sense that it shows us that the characters that inhabit this world, as broken as the world itself seems to be, they themselves believe in their ideals, in their convictions enough to put all this effort and detail and symbolism into their armor, weapons, and the things that they're wearing, as well as into their architecture. Let me show you a better example. I believe this has got to be one of everyone's favorite Warhammer pieces of artwork. So these are the Ultramarines, and they are in the middle of a battle against the orcs, and you can tell right away that yes, it is very gothic, it is very grimdark, but the Ultramarines themselves, once you silence the noise of the battle, the roar of the cannons in the background, of that multi-melter, I think it's more like a plasma cannon, plasma cannon that Terminator is wearing, and all those bolt guns that the Space Marines are shooting. When you look at their armors, at their weapons, at all the paraphernalia that they are wearing, that's the type of detail that I am talking about, that enriches this world. If you focus on the buildings on the background, you will see these are no mere rectangular shape buildings. No, these are cathedrals of a scope that we just cannot imagine, because we have never seen anything like that in the real world, right? So these are space cathedrals, future space cathedrals. And of course, even within all the darkness of this universe, that John Blanche is opening a window for us to look through, even with all of that going on, humanity has achieved a sense of excellence in their ferocity. It is clearly not aspirational, but it is very reminiscent to me of Dune, the Dune books by Frank Herbert, right? They are not aspirational, they don't paint necessarily a pretty picture of a possible future for our species, but they still represent not the limits, but the possibilities that human evolution and ingenuity and conviction can achieve, right? Like how people are able to turn their brains into computers just by how they are raised, or how the navigators are able to traverse, to create a capsule that allows time and space to move through it without affecting them through, let's say, ingesting space spices. and how the Bene Gesserit through eugenics and many other means and very hard training regimes and just how they train their entire lives, they can acquire what we would consider paranormal skills, but yet to them they are all within the grasp of what is possible for the human. That is very much what this reminds me of. In Warhammer, obviously, there is a lot more technology involved, a lot more transhumanism involved, but John Blanche certainly painted this picture for us. I don't mean this exact picture. He obviously painted this exact picture, but I mean the vision of this world. And I feel like it is, people might take for granted how unique Warhammer is in that regard. Yes, it took a lot of inspiration from other worlds like Dune, of course, but it has inspired sci-fi forever. It has changed. I don't know what that advertisement was about. I don't want to know. I apologize for that. It has changed sci-fi forever, and even fantasy as well. Because, again, John Blanche just spoke through these canvases. And I heard an interview of him once saying how he was more like a method actor than just a painter. Because a painter, imagines something, an image, and he, through technical skills, tries to draw what he's imagining. But John Blanche said, no, I live in this world. I put myself in this world, and there is nothing more than the image, and I am living the image. And you can tell. Going back to my comparison to Art Nouveau, look at this, one of my favorite paintings. Look at this Adepta Sororitas, or Sororitas in High Gothic. Look again at the gesture of her. Look at the she could be a fashion model, right? But not in this universe. No, in this universe she is an executioner of faith. She delivers the Emperor's holy judgment upon the heretics, and it's not something nice, and it's not something pretty, and obviously it's not aspirational, but that is what is fascinating about the Grimdark, the true Grimdark that I like so much. And I think a lot of people have taken that for granted. I think in today's Grimdark Warhammer, Grimdark, people struggle. I read a lot of Warhammer books, okay? I've read over 100 books at this point, and I keep reading more and more. And I think authors and painters nowadays, and whichever narrative and storytellers they have working on this stuff, they struggle sometimes to find the balance between how can we make this a grimdark world, but also not make it too dark that it fails and just there's no stories to tell because everything sucks always and nothing is worth fighting for. This is for Maestro John Blanche. How do they find the balance between that and the hope punk that we have had more recently, right? Like, oh yeah, there's a million space marines that appear out of nowhere, and all Primarchs are returning, and the Primarchs are like, oh, the Imperium is not too good, maybe we should try to make it better. And it becomes very progressive all of a sudden, and he's like, okay, well, let's maybe not go that far, but they struggle between finding that and the other thing they sometimes do, where it becomes just grimdark. It's just grimdark for the sake of grimdark. And I think that John Blanche had the answer to this question intuitively, again, by just existing in this universe and saying like, yes, everything sucks, yes, everything is dark, yes, everything is horrific, but check this lady, isn't she a badass? Isn't she the top of the top of, again, human excellence in regards to faith and zealotry and fighting prowess? And how cool is that? I think that's what people are missing. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I saw a movie called The Phantom Menace in the theaters, and it was obviously Star Wars Episode 1. I love this piece so much. Oh man. Anyways, it was obviously Star Wars Episode 1, and every kid, all of my friends, we all fell in love with Darth Maul. Even though he was scary, he was the bad guy, he was terrifying, but he was kind of like so cool. Like, his moves, his looks, like he was the bad guy, and we were all sad when he struck down Qui-Gon Jinn and whatever. But I think like when we used to like replay the fight scenes at school, we all wanted to be Darth Maul because he was like the coolest, and that's the vibe of Warhammer. Yes, of course it is hopeless and grimdark, but sometimes it takes a universe to be this twisted and this dark so that we may have like the coolest thing possible, imaginable, like the Adeptus Custodes, these 8 feet tall genetic superhumans, and the Astronomican and the Golden Throne, sorry, that is just powered by arcane technologies that some are alien, some are man-made, but they are so advanced, so far in our future that we cannot even start to comprehend. And actually, such a long amount of time, such a long span of time has passed since this was built, that since this universe that we see here was built, you know, like the 10,000 years. I know the Golden Throne is way older, but the 10,000 years since the Horus Heresy, it was so long ago that even the same civilization who built it has forgotten. They didn't build again the Golden Throne, but they enhanced it, let's say, has forgotten how to use that technology or how to recreate it. And that is an amazing concept that you can only truly experience this way, visibly at least. I'm not saying only John Blanche can achieve it, but he was certainly the tip of the spear for this type of aggressive, daring explorations of again these visions of this horrific world that is still very cool. I mean, look at that. This is obviously like inspired. This ship here is obviously inspired by like a, I think at least, like a trireme, I think they're called, like those Greek or Roman battleships to an extent. And obviously has like Gothic cathedrals popping out of nowhere, and also it's like a man of war, like the British warship, and with all the cannons on the side and whatnot. And probably if an astrologer saw this painting, they would like get a heart attack or a stroke, because they're like, well, planets don't work that way, and there's like no fire in space, or not, there is, but not like that, or whatever. But like, who cares, nerd? Shut up. Just enjoy this. Look at the magnificence of this. Yes, there's clearly like something very wrong with a culture who is able to build this ship, with a culture who is able, a civilization, a species who is able to dedicate so many resources to build something so baroque and advanced that it may travel through space and time, and even through hell itself, to cover distances at faster than light speed. And they use it to basically turn it into a fortress, a moving fortress of violence. Just basically a weapon, right? They have all this technology at their hands, and they're like, how can I make these more beautiful, but more deadly as well? And I just absolutely love that concept. And it is something that is really hard to achieve. I know, because I've tried, right? Like me in my art, my fan art. Not only my fan art, but just in general in my art, it is something that I try to achieve with my meager skills. But it's not only about my drawing skills. It's also about connecting with my inner world, and being able to translate what my mind's eye sees onto the paper, onto the canvas. And of course, the maestro John Blanche was so good at it. So I don't want to ramble too much. Not that he's not worth talking about for hours and hours. It's just, I don't know, I could talk for hours and hours. That's sort of the issue, right? And I just love the Grimdark art so much, and it has inspired me and my own process as an artist so much that I am just eternally grateful for that. But even more, not only as an artist, just in every way, right? Like, it gave so much to our hobby, and I believe this type of art just gives us so much to our life, just makes life way richer, way more enjoyable, because in this sort of thing we can be exposed to experiences and almost like sensations and thoughts and ideas and imaginations that we would have hardly been exposed to in other ways, right? And I do believe in the collective unconscious, and I do believe that in order for John Blanche to make to visualize and to put to paper, to canvas all these twisted worlds, that means he was only likely just channeling something that all of us have in our collective psyche, and he was sort of the channel for the grimdark that we all have within us. So, you know, that's all to say, and I could say a lot more. Again, like how much he did to raise this hobby. You know, a hobby that literally has saved many lives. Believe it or not, people have been saved by this hobby, by this universe. And who knows, maybe we are also one of those people who have been saved. Maybe we just don't see it that way. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think this hobby, this universe, would have become as big as it became eventually if it wasn't for John Blanche. Because of course I wasn't around when he was created, like the first pieces for Rogue Trader and so on. But perhaps it would have never become as famous as it did, and thus I would have never heard of it. Like, there are probably so many worlds out there in sci-fi worlds that I just haven't heard of. So with that being said, thank you, John Blanche. Thank you again for I don't know, just sharing your visions of Doom with us. They have absolutely enriched my life, and yeah, I'm just very grateful for that. And thank you everyone for watching. So once again, here's to John Blanche, and we shall see you at the Emperor's side, my friend. With that being said, thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to join the guard. And yeah, I guess I'll see you all on the next one. As always, remember, Adastra, and there are no female custodies.